Should we talk about the other thing?
Yeah.
The deception?
Our deception, the lie.
Do you want to set this up?
So we went and saw the Nintendo Direct and played Luigi's Mansion on Sunday. And then, so the event started out. And this is something Nintendo's done for a couple of years now, where it's like, hey, like to get your stories ready and to just wrap your head around what we're announcing, we're going to show you the Direct and you sign an NDA and blah, blah, blah. And Austin and I are sitting watching it, and then like I don't know who was up last.
I forget. We just watched it again. I don't remember.
But someone from Nintendo who's like doing the closing, like, thank you for watching. We have so many more games to announce soon, and we can't wait to show you. And that line, can't wait to show you, and it cuts in just like the most
goodbye.
Yeah.
No, like we'll see you later.
Like chink.
We'll see you in the on the floor. No, nothing like that. Just like snap. None of that. Like no logo. It was just like Bill Trinan comes on stage to then say, hey, okay, now we're going to talk to you about.
There was a PR person that came up to like remind us about the embargo.
Yes.
But I remember turning to Austin and being like, that was a really sharp cut.
But this isn't the first time this has happened. This has happened before, either last year or the year before, and I remember being like, ooh, I bet there's something else.
And then there wasn't.
And then there wasn't. And then this year...
There was.
You texted me.
So you didn't know until I texted you?
No, when you texted me, I was like, ah! And then I immediately pulled it up and found a longer version of it. Or not the longer version, but the version of it. Patrick, you wrote... let's find it here. Well, we've now talked about it. You wrote...
Austin, watch the Direct.
The Direct, all caps. And I said, God damn it. And you said, they've lied to us.
They've lied to us.
They've lied, spelled Theyvlied.
I just blew past the autocorrect. I was like,
They lied to us. And we saw a teaser trailer for a follow-up to Breath of the Wild. In the style of Breath of the Wild, in which Zelda and Link are descending through some caverns on a giant bison creature looking thing.
Sure.
There's some
cool.
Shout outs to Aqua.
There are some torches.
There's some blue stuff swirling in the sky.
Swirly blue stuff.
My guess is there are going to be some screen captures that I'm going to look at before I go to bed tonight.
There's a hand. There's another hand.
But there's some. It seems like there's some shit on the wall.
It does seem like there's
probably
some shit
gives
on the wall.
Some hints at like wherever like the general story is going.
Absolutely. And then things go wild. There's lights. There's an arm that sort of looks like Midna's, right?
From
Not
Twilight
Midna,
Princess.
Midna. Yeah, but I'm not sure. I saw it again today.
Who among us doesn't want them to pull from that one?
Well,
that's why. As much as I agree aesthetically, it looks similar to that. I don't know that like Twilight Princess is the one they're gonna go back
I really don't like Twilight Princess as a game. I kind of like Twilight Princess as like a story and aesthetic.
Sure.
Now I think there was even the Twilight mirror shows up somewhere in Breath of the Wild. So there's already some sort of weird connection to that world.
Right.
I happened to run into a fan of ours today at the show who's part of a Zelda fan site.
Okay.
And he was shook. He was like, Austin. And I was like, hi, nice to meet you. It's like, I was like, yeah, I saw it. He's like, I'm like, what did it mean? He's like, I don't know yet. We have a lot of work to do. I was like, all right, you keep me in the loop.
Yeah. But that purple stuff looks like Twilight Realm shit. Like the purple swirly, like the dark reddish purple. That's like some Twilight Realm shit.
If you can give us like what the Reddit analysis has,
please,
like
because we've been busy.
On what people think is happening in this.
I have a theory.
Sure.
A lot of the blue lights reminded me of the spirit shit that's around the king. Mm-hmm. So I assume it's some sort of realm of like the dead.
Do you think that's the king's body?
No, I think that's Ganon's
old
body.
Kings? You think it's Ganon's body?
They had red hair.
That's my feeling.
The thing that I should finish describing it, which is I also kind of thought that originally. They see this head that like gains red eyes and comes to life, and you hear the sound of its neck cracking. It looks like royalty, or it looks like someone with like a crown on, kind of. I think it's been 20 minutes. I've already forgotten. and then like eyes light up, and then hard cut to a wide shot of like Hyrule Field. And in the distance, the Hyrule Castle, cleansed of the calamity, begins to shudder and shake, and then you can hear it begin to move, and some birds fly off to the side, and then it looks like it starts to raise off the ground.
I was just going to say it was a very Night King type reveal, and I know that ended badly. Not gonna like sugarcoat that, but it did sort of capture that moment, that moment where realities, it kind of shifts, right? This thing snaps its eyes open, and it's like, okay, now is really
has
on.
Been
right. Yeah, and I think the other thing that I found really appealing there is that I loved like Breath of the Wild was a gorgeous game, and I loved the almost like Disney take on the fairy tale version, or like maybe New Disney. I don't know what the right way to put it is, but this trailer put me in mind of like Sleeping Beauty type fairy tale, right? Like the darker fairy tale, like the strange and eerie beauty of magic. Yeah. And this put me in that place, and that's a good place.
Totally. There was an early trailer that I'm not going to be able to find that, and I bet the final game also had similar phrasing to this, but I remember, here it is, I actually found it right away. This is so fucking good. And this is when I knew I would like Breath of the Wild even before I played it. There is like, oh wow, Link is climbing stuff and going all over the place. And then the narrator cuts in, and it's the voice of what we now know as the king from Breath of the Wild, and he says, "The history of the royal family of Hyrule is also the history of Calamity Ganon, a primal evil that has endured over the ages." And this like indelible connection between the royal family and the Calamity, which in Breath of the Wild is framed as a sort of force of nature or something intrinsic, is so haunting, because it means that so long as there is a royal family, the Calamity is there. That like the fact that the Calamity could strike at any time is not something you can defeat without also encountering the fact that there is a royal family. Right?
Well, this is classic family curse stuff, right?
Absolutely.
Like, the curse defines your family. Remove the curse, what are you?
Right.
And sorry, just pretend a moment ago I said Breath of the Wild is Studio Ghibli, and this is Ivan Earl. I think is maybe more the analogy I would use. Okay. That seems more the like analogy for the style that I'm saying. But yeah.
Right. There's something else here that I think struck me that was so strange, and this is probably a very me thing, or I don't know that this is going to be like a universal, but when I saw that, I had like a deeply emotional reaction to that trailer that I did not expect, even though for a year and a half I'd been like, it'd be cool if they did a Breath of the Wild.
And of course they were going to make another one.
Of course they were, but though I didn't know if they were going to do another. In the past, they've been like, all right, next time we're going to do like a heavy motion control thing. I didn't know if it would be a direct follow-on, a sequel.
Which they don't really do.
They don't really do. Yeah. They don't really do. This is a sequel to Zelda. It's all in a chronology.
Like a link to the past, and then it was like, how long would tour until a Link Between Worlds, right? Like in which you have a connection between like very specific iterations of stuff. But even that is not a direct sequel
in that sense. And so
I mean, the only one is Majora's Mask, right?
Yeah, Majora's Mask is a direct sequel to Ocarina of Time, but it's not a continuation of the is Hyrule.
Whereas it seems like this might
be. It's a sequel, but not a sequel of like the evolution of
the themes and gameplay is so different that it almost isn't, but it's technically the same.
And I'd be fine for this to feel like that, though I think whatever this is will need to be understood in context of it coming after Breath of the Wild and its narrative, right? The thing that I found myself feeling after sitting with that, so I like somewhere in the middle of watching this trailer, I didn't start crying, but I came very close. I think my cab driver was very confused because I was looking at my phone, just like shaking, and I didn't realize how much that game had meant to me. And that's not a perfect game. Like that game has a bunch of problems, both in terms of its design, in terms of the fact that like there's a really transphobic act in the middle of that game, in terms of the fact that like I think that it climaxes really poorly. Like I think that the final fights
there's a reason a lot of people haven't finished that
game,
despite putting hundreds of hours into it.
Absolutely. And yet something about it was like, oh fuck, like this is hitting me. And then I realized I'm not shook because it means so much to me. That's part of it. But there's also some weird part of me that is like, oh no, they shouldn't have to go through this. Let them have it. What I wanted from the end of that game, I said this at the time, was like an epilogue where you see what happens after you defeat Ganon at the end of that game. And you go around the world and you check in with your friends.
There's peace, and people are moving on.
But in wanting a follow-up, in wanting to have a mechanical
follow-up.
But even before that, even what I'm almost asking for is like, bring more trouble into their lives for me. Like, fuck up this piece for me. I want them to have to encounter something. Or I'm asking for a thing that I never want to ask for, which is like a happy ending that says history ends here. They save the day, the end. And that's never been what Zelda is about. Zelda historically is like the cycle of violence, the cycle of good versus evil. You never beat this thing once and for all. It always comes back.
It might be generations from now, but
it's coming back. There is no big final solution. And so like in wanting to follow them one more time over the horizon, I was either asking to get them into trouble or for a permanent peace, which I know cannot exist in this world. And so to some degree, it's like, oh shit, seeing this and seeing something that was so dark and so meant to be uncomfortable was like forcing me to recognize my own complicity in wanting heroes to go through like tragedy or whatever.
Yeah, but I think a part of, after you sort of explained that to me when we were talking earlier, I think if I was in the right mind, like in the right place, like I was in the middle of a really crowded E3 floor trying to watch this trailer right before a meeting, so I didn't really get the time to sit with it. But watching it again after we talked, I felt like a part of me that was okay that darkness was returning was like a confidence in Zelda and Link's courage and capability and like just absolute determination to overcome. And like I'd connected with that so deeply in Breath of the Wild that it's almost like I connect so intimately with that sense of courage. Like literally one of the fucking Triforce is courage, right? Like it's like right there in the DNA of the game. Yeah, it's the Link one. But speaking of Link being one part, the other part is Zelda, who is wisdom. Yeah. Guess what else Zelda is? Short-haired.
She has that short hair on.
She has short hair now.
She's out in the world. She's adventuring.
What does short hair mean?
I don't know. What's it mean?
You're ready to fucking fight if you need to.
True.
When I cut my hair short, I did it because I wanted to be able to fucking fight someone in case of something.
Man, people need to not let their expectations
No, I'm with you.
When I cut my hair, so I had hair down to like the middle of my back for my entire life. And 2 years ago, I cut it really short because I wanted like this, like it was a really emotional process. Hair is like very important in Latinx communities. It was really important to me. It was a big part of my identity. I cut my hair off, like made it really short. And when I saw Zelda with short hair, I like saw myself in that moment in the sense that I was like, I let go of like so much shit that had been with me through, like when you think about hair, I know this is like a wild conversation, but when you think about hair and how many memories like your hair shares with you throughout its growth and throughout time, like I think of like how long time is when I think about like how long my hair was. When I cut it, I was like cutting off so many connections to moments in my past and memories and stuff. So when I think of Zelda with her haircut,
who wore her hair the way she did for eons.
For eons. She's never... When have we ever seen Zelda with short hair?
Even this specific Zelda, the whole thing was
in Breath of the Wild, she had long hair.
And was trapped in a literal fight with Ganon for 1,000 years. 100 years.
Yeah. And so when I think of Zelda with short hair, I think of someone who has let something go of her past. Yeah. Whether that is the inability to fight and engage in... like in a very literal sense, be like a playable character. Like it makes me so, and I hope I don't, I mean, who fucking knows? Yeah. This is the thing about reading into open-ended trailers that we just talked about like 2 nights ago. History shows
that she will not be playable.
Because like, Nintendo fucking sucks.
Who would not love to be surprised? Like I would love to be surprised. But I'm just saying like the history of Hyrule,
I know.
The history of Nintendo, the history of The Legend of Zelda is that she only is playable in spin-offs. You know what she's playable in? Cadence of Hyrule. Yeah. You know what she's playable in? The Dynasty Warriors.
Hyrule Warriors. Mm-hmm. Listen, maybe we'll get Animal Crossing Nintendo who fixes their shit.
I'm just saying
10 years too late.
It's like instead I feel like a better framing of like thinking about the possibility space of that game is assuming that won't happen because it's more likely.
We should assume that it will actually be the most frustrating opening to a game ever.
She will I think I texted you. I was like, the only thing that trailer was missing was Link passing out, her grabbing the sword, and then cut to black.
Okay,
and I was like, but like that's the fan version of like a version of the game we want.
There's a screenshot of the trailer in which when the hand it's like a split second, but when the hand reaches down and grabs the arm, I think it's Link's arm because it looks like Link's sort of clothes and stuff. So when the creepy arm like comes down and grabs the other arm, I think it's Link's arm.
But this is just like there was a full year and a half discussion of Breath of the Wild that the reason his like the look of Link was made to be like more neutral was because like
it could be like Link or Link. Yeah.
Right. At the same time, though, this is following on the heels of a Zelda game that gave Zelda a more heroic and active role than maybe she's had in some time, maybe ever.
Even if
she's close to being.
I don't know if that's true. Wasn't she literally off adventuring all through Skyward Sword?
Ocarina of Time.
I was gonna say
Ocarina of Time. Like when you encounter who is she being in
Ocarina of Time? Sheik.
Yes.
True.
She is up to shit in Ocarina of Time.
Yeah, but she's so absent.
Off screen.
She's so absent, and that's the thing that I think Rob's pointing to is that you spend so much more time watching what Zelda went through while you were gone, while you were literally.
It still feels like table scraps, though.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it is. It is table scraps, but it is something that at least creates a foundation for.
She's certainly more of a character. She's a character with agency.
For giving me a reason to hope.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, it's not, I don't feel like I'm grasping at straws. I'm grasping at what's the step above straws.
Is this a screen cap?
Just what the fuck is going on in this screen cap? Link reached up and then got pulled up and now it's all white and I want to know what's happening in this trailer.
I know, we need to go frame by frame.
I am.
So... What would be the abso-fucking-loot worst thing to see?
Hey,
what?
At second 40, I'm going to walk us through this. You can't see because of the light. At second 46, that right there. Did you see that? 45.
Nope. She falls.
She fucking falls through the ground.
Stop it.
Ready? So they're reaching up, then cuts to here, then Link's hand gets grabbed, then we get that black and white.
What if whatever that thing is just like traps her in some sort of...
There's Link, here's Zelda on the left. Can you see her?
Okay. Tilt it down a little bit. Just a tiny bit. There you go. Perfect.
Ready?
Yeah. Fucking hell. Fuck this fucking game.
Wait. But what if...
knows?
She like this?
Oh, yeah.
She's out.
What
she's
if?
Outie.
What if?
She's out, but what if she's outie and then you play them both?
That would be great.
Yes, look, if
two-player co-op.
No, 100%. Like it would not be totally.
Breath of the Wild 2.
That had co-op
like
the
Wild.
That would be like a really interesting expansion of like the concept of Breath of the Wild. Yes. So the idea that you suddenly had Link and Zelda as playable characters that the player could just swap between and they're both capable. Like that's not a. It would be very compatible with what they're doing. But I also just like. Feel like did we do this every fucking
Thank
time?
you to the Zero Crescent for saying back and to the left. That's where my head was. So anyway,
it's its own version of the Sonic cycle.
In a year, we'll have way more to say because they'll show any of this fucking game.
Yeah.
Yes, Rob.
I don't know. I don't necessarily know that Natalie's read or the meaning she's getting from it is dependent necessarily on Zelda being playable. There's a broader issue here with the fact that Zelda's never playable, that Link is always presented, at least by and large, as a little boy who becomes the hero and saves the kingdom. But I don't know. I just also feel that there's something powerful here about like knowing what Zelda's role was in the last story and then having her sort of like be the leader into the darkness of this trailer. I don't know.
But I can't get fucking hyped on it.
Let me participate in that strife. Like, let me participate and engage with that struggle aside from just being a fucking voyeur and, like, observing it constantly. Like, that's the thing for me that, yes, I can still be able to recognize that Zelda has taken care of shit and has, like, kept the world together when nobody else could. But until I can share in that, it's not going to be enough. It's like it's better than it's been, but it's not enough.
Well, part of what's frustrating about Breath of the Wild, and what makes this like as our imagination thinks about it, is that Breath of the Wild actually gave like the gap between what like Breath of the Wild gave Zelda as a character relative to other Zelda games was huge. Like the other games, she is literally, there's Sheik in Ocarina of Time. It happens all so off screen that like you don't get a ton with her. Like part of the response to Breath of the Wild is that like, oh, they gave a little bit to her, and look how much it enhanced like the story. Look how much it like filled out the world, and even Link as a character becomes better by like Zelda being like a more fleshed out character who's struggling with, has done things. You have empathy for her, you have sympathy for her, and so I think that's where like I get frustrated even in the speculative part of it, because it's like, okay, history has shown it won't happen, but part I think Breath of the Wild's as good as it was, even on a storytelling perspective, that's disconnected from the world stuff, was wow, you gave her just a little bit to do, and look how much it did for a story. Because ultimately, Breath of the Wild didn't have much of a story, right?
Sure.
And part of what I find interesting about...
And the core story really was... Like, if you look at just, like, the series of cutscenes that you get from the memories, it is Zelda trying to come to learn how to use her magic, struggling to do that, meeting the champions who are there to serve her trying to draw strength from them, including from old friends like Urbosa, and then, like, eventually coming into her own and holding Ganon at bay. And
I do wonder if this... I'd have to go look through or maybe someone can point out the history of, like, how Nintendo has marketed previous Zelda games, especially when they are first... shown, but my sense is, as someone that has liked a lot of these games, watched a lot of the marketing of these games, it is not usually the case that this is a very like story focused, mythology focused way to introduce the next game. Like a lot of what is like being shown here is like, oh, this is perhaps some deep dark secret related to Calamity Ganon, related to something that Hyrule has been hiding that maybe is potentially part of it, like a
family curse, or
literal skeletons in the closet.
Literal, totally.
And I will say, like, when I started thinking about what that actually means, like for the game itself, like outside of the Zelda part, is maybe it's less about what's happening above the surface, and maybe there's a whole world beneath the surface, and like the castle coming up is. There's been speculation like, what if you go underground and like that's where like the proper dungeons are, and stuff like that.
Right, totally. As like a quick comparison, looking back at the E3 2014 like reveal of what Breath of the Wild was,
it's way more about the game.
It was Eiji Aonuma. It was like 2 minutes of them being like, here's the history of Zelda. Here's what past Zeldas were. Then it was Eiji Aonuma literally being on in front of
a green screen,
basically a green screen, like a Twitch streamer, and behind him was Link on a horse with like a beautiful vista, and then it kind of cuts away and like zooms in, and Link rides the horse away, and the fire starts propagating, and the Guardian shows up, and it's this big action thing. And like, yeah, this is definitely something that's a little bit more leaning on lore, and also having Zelda there being an active thing is not nothing. But I think I'm with you, Natalie. Like, for me, it's not a. It says so much about what the studio's priorities are, and the thing I want to do is like see what her role is and play as her, and ideally have new verbs and old verbs on the table for her specifically.
Yeah. The thing is, I wouldn't have imagined that these trailers would have been similar at all, because one, they're developing in the same engine as Breath of the Wild, so there's not really a huge reason to make a gameplay focused, like mechanics focused trailer. And also at the time, like Breath of the Wild is being promoted alongside the Switch, and it was like, what does the Switch mean in terms of gameplay, and what is Breath of the Wild going to do to engage with that and have a conversation with that? So I think that they're coming at different moments in time in which we know what the Switch can do for the most part, and like interesting iterations on that are going to be secondary to whatever. Like this Breath of the Wild is mythology like incarnate. It is like absolutely materializing like mythologies that they've gestured to for years. Yeah. And that's why I think that the framing makes sense in a next step, rather than looking at the way that they promoted Breath of the Wild originally. So I think it would be interesting to go watch like Majora's Mask ones, or like ones in the past that even a Skyward Sword one, which was like very
Majora's
mechanically,
Mask is like a very plot-driven, character-driven.
Yeah,
story,
it's very
plot-driven. The mechanics take like, the time manipulation mechanics, but like that is like very much about like the characters of this world, the story of like this particular world in a way that I'd love to see that layered on top of what already was good about Breath of the Wild.
I briefly want to shout out the incredible PC mod scene for Breath of the Wild. If people haven't been paying attention to that, people who run Breath of the Wild on emulators, there's like a really strong, really like complete Linkle mod now, where you can play that game as Linkle with a bunch of Linkle was the Fem Link in the character in Hyrule Warriors. I never played Hyrule Warriors. I don't know what her backstory is. What's her deal?
She is like a girl who comes from a small town / village or whatever, and has dual crossbows. She's fucking tight, but has no story about her.
Right. And so like the most recent mods of that seem really, really cool and complete, down to like characters changing dialogue for her and stuff like that. So really cool.
It's cool.
Yeah.